We live in interesting times for the headlines. After a roughly 6-year-long stay in the Philippines, dozens of containers of Canadian garbage are going back to their country. President Donald Trump says Washington will impose a 5% tariff on all goods from Mexico starting June 10, a measure that will last until illegal migrants stop coming through the country into the U.S. Hopes fade of finding more survivors from a boat accident on the Danube River in Budapest, with 21 people still missing, mainly South Korean tourists. And later, talented Filipino rapper Rapido has released Bacante, the new single released by E25 Records. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. After a roughly 6-year-long stay in the Philippines, dozens of containers of Canadian garbage have gone back to their home. The 69 shipping containers of garbage were loaded onto a cargo vessel at Subic Bay earlier, a former U.S. naval base and shipping port northwest of Manila, and began the lengthy trip back to Canada.
It will take 29 hours to get to Kaohsiung, and then it will stop in Kaohsiung to get more cargo that will be loaded to MV Bavaria, and then it will proceed to what they call the Delta port over at Vancouver.
Bye-bye, as we say it, Philippine Foreign Secretary Teodoro Locsin wrote on Twitter, along with images of the vessel leaving. The Philippine row centers on dozens of containers which a Canadian firm sent to the Southeast Asian nation in 2013 and 2014, incorrectly labeled as recyclables. The issue has polluted Manila-Ottawa ties for years, but it blew up when President Duterte said in an April speech, "Let's fight Canada, I will declare war against them." And since then, Canada pledged to take back the waste. But after it missed a Manila-imposed May 15 deadline, the Philippines recalled its envoys to Ottawa. President Duterte spokesman Salvador Panelo ratcheted up the pressure by saying Manila would ship the trash back on its own immediately and threatened to dump the waste in Canadian waters. From the Philippine side, there were immediate signs the departure of the trash would stabilize Manila-Ottawa relations. Foreign Secretary Locsin tweeted, quote, "To our recalled posts, get your flights back. Thanks and sorry for the trouble you went through to drive home a point." A Dutch bird watcher held by Islamic State-linked militants was killed on Friday during a firefight between his kidnappers and soldiers in the southern Philippines, according to the military, which said he was shot by his captors as he tried to escape. Ewald Horn had been held since 2012 by the Abu Sayyaf Kidnap for Ransom group and was fatally wounded as soldiers fought a 90-minute gun battle with the jihadists on their stronghold, Holo Island. Horn was shot by one of his guards when he tried to escape from the Abu Sayyaf during this morning's gunfight, according to Brigadier General Divino Rey Pabayo in a statement. "I am shocked by this tragic outcome," Dutch Foreign Minister Stef Blok told news agency ANP. "I'm in touch with the family and I will ask my Philippine colleague for further clarification on the circumstance of Ewald's death." Horn was on an expedition to photograph rare birds on the remote Tawi-Tawi Island group in the southern Philippines when he was abducted by unknown gunmen and turned over to the Abu Sayyaf. Horn was seized along with Lorenzo Vinciguerra, a Swiss national who managed to escape in 2014 during a gun battle between soldiers and his captors. Now, the military said that the group was believed to be holding still at least 2 Filipinos and a Vietnamese national, but not sure they're still alive. Meanwhile, hopes were fading of finding more survivors from a boat accident on the Danube River in Budapest, with 21 people still missing, mainly South Korean tourists. The Mermaid sightseeing boat carrying South Korean tourists overturned and was swallowed by the Danube just seconds after it collided in pouring rain with a much larger cruise ship. Rescue and recovery operations have been hampered by the strong current, making any diving attempts very risky and complicating plans to lift the wreck. The water level is not expected to start receding before Tuesday next week at the earliest. The 26-meter Mermaid was dwarfed by the vessel it collided with, a 135-meter four-story Viking sign longship, which had about 180 passengers on board. Now, police said they have launched a probe into criminal negligence and were questioning the SIG's Ukrainian captain. Some survivors have described the terrifying ordeal as the Mermaid sank almost immediately and they were pitched into the dark waters. Some were able to grab onto rescue buoys and watched in horror as fellow passengers struggled to stay afloat. Meanwhile, Washington will impose a 5% tariff on all goods from Mexico, increasing to as much as 25% until illegal migrants stop coming through the country into the U.S., President Trump said Thursday. He wrote on Twitter, "On June 10th, the United States will impose a 5% tariff on all goods coming into our country from Mexico until such time as illegal migrants coming through Mexico and into our country stop." He said on Twitter, the tariff will gradually increase until the illegal immigration problem is remedied, at which time the tariffs will be removed. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador struck a conciliatory tone in a letter to Trump on Thursday following the tariff announcement. "I express to you that I don't want confrontation," he wrote, "and I propose deepening our dialogue to look for other alternatives to the migration problem." President Trump's announcement came a day after border agents in El Paso, Texas, detained the largest single group of migrants they had ever encountered, 1,036 people. The group crossed the Rio Grande River from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, illustrating the mounting problem that Trump's administration has been unable to get under control.
All of them are with families. They're all traveling with family units. They all have kids claiming to be their children. We're still investigating that with some of them. A lot of them are thirsty, they're hungry, they're scared. Just a little earlier, we had an individual with a young son running away from it, which is something that's not common. Usually, they are looking for us to turn ourselves in, and we're seeing that it's kind of strange to have somebody running from us. Usually, when that happens, it's usually somebody that might be escaping apprehension, maybe he has some sort of criminal history or something. So we don't know. So it kind of caught our attention a little bit why he started running. So we can just see he was just scared. He thought that he was probably still in Mexico. This is normal, just in this little 2-mile stretch of border in El Paso sector is probably one of the busiest 2-mile sections in the whole United States. On an average here, just in this area, averaging, we're just over 1,100 apprehensions a day. That's on average, that's a 30-day average. But a lot of people.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump's move to impose a 5% tariff on all Mexican goods in response to migrant border crossings would be disastrous, according to Mexico's top diplomat for North America, vowing to retaliate. Take a look.
Es algo desastroso, o sea, por supuesto que esa amenaza llevada a la acción sería gravísima, muy seria, extremadamente seria. Pero sí confío en que sea algo que no esté destinado a llegar a acción, porque sería gravísimo. Si llegara a suceder, pues nosotros, en mi opinión, debemos responder en una forma enérgica.
Trump earlier tweeted that he would impose the tariff starting on June 10 and that it would gradually increase until the illegal immigration problem is remedied. SIADA had been planning to hold an upbeat press conference to mark the start of the ratification process this week for the United States, Mexico, Canada, or USMCA agreement, the new trade deal intended to replace Trump's much-hated NAFTA. Instead, it turned into a bitter reaction to Trump's tariff announcement. Meanwhile, Asian stocks edged down on Friday despite modest gains on Wall Street overnight as U.S. President Trump's sudden announcement of tariffs on all Mexican imports saw Tokyo shares drop. The announcement saw shares in Japanese automakers plunge in early trade, with Honda dropping 4.26% to 2,651 yen, Mazda plummeting 7.13% to 1,061.5 yen, Nissan down 5.31% to 734.6 yen, and Toyota slipping 2.84% to 6,384 yen. Tokyo's main index fell 1.6%, while Hong Kong shed 0.8%, Shanghai edged down 0.2%, and Singapore lost 0.8%. Sydney and Seoul managed a 0.1% gain. Trump's announcement has put the new North American trade pact between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico at risk, with the agreement still awaiting ratification by the legislatures of the three countries. Coming amidst a protracted trade war between the U.S. and China, the announcement will do little to soothe investors' anxieties. A U.S.-China trade deal will be even less likely, said Kun Go, head of research at Australia-New Zealand Banking Group Limited in Singapore. At the end of the day, what's the point of doing a deal if the U.S. can just impose tariffs arbitrarily? Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has launched a fierce personal attack on former special counsel Robert Mueller. Trump said Robert Mueller, who investigated Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election as a special counsel, is a conflicted person and a true never-Trumper. Earlier, Robert Mueller reiterated that the investigation found evidence of attempts by President Trump to obstruct his investigation.
After that investigation, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime.
But he said he was blocked from charging the president by Justice Department regulations and indicated that it is up to Congress to launch impeachment proceedings to determine if Trump committed a crime.
When a subject of an investigation obstructs that investigation or lies to investigators, it strikes at the core of the government's effort to find the truth and hold wrongdoers accountable.
Now, Trump, in response, slammed Mueller as conflicted and said the investigation had produced no evidence against him.
I don't know. I think he is a total conflicted person. I think Mueller is a true never-Trumper. He's somebody that dislikes Donald Trump. He's somebody that didn't get a job that he requested, that he wanted very badly, and then he was appointed.
He claimed Mr. Mueller had approached him at the Oval Office in 2017, seeking to regain his former position as FBI director.
Look, Robert Mueller should have never been chosen because he wanted the FBI job and he didn't get it, and the next day he was picked as special counsel. So you tell somebody, I'm sorry, you can't have the job. And then after you say that, he's going to make a ruling on you. It doesn't work that way. Plus, we had a business dispute. Plus, his relationship with Comey was extraordinary. Because I didn't know anything about
Now, asked about growing clamor in Democratic ranks for the launch of impeachment proceedings against him, Trump called it presidential harassment.
There's no obstruction, there's no collusion, there's no nothing. It's nothing but a witch hunt. This is a witch hunt by the media and the Democrats, their partners. And it keeps going. I thought it was finished when the report was released, but it goes on and allowed, although I can't imagine the courts allowing it. I've never gone into it. I never thought that would even be possible to be using that word. To me, it's a dirty word, the word impeach. It's a dirty, filthy, disgusting word, and it had nothing to do with me. So I don't think so, because there was no crime. You know?
In other news, North Korea has reportedly executed its special envoy to the United States following the collapse of the second summit between leader Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump. Now, the reports come from a South Korean newspaper, Chosun Ilbo. It said Kim Yok-chol, who laid the groundwork for the Hanoi meeting and accompanied Kim on his private train, was executed by firing squad for betraying the supreme leader after he was won over to the U.S. during pre-summit negotiations. The other officials were not named. Kim Yok-chol was the North's counterpart of U.S. Special Representative Stephen Biegun in the run-up to the Hanoi summit in February. The paper also said Kim Jong-un's interpreter, Shin Ye-yong, was sent to a prison camp for a mistake at the summit. She failed to translate Kim's new proposal when Trump declared no deal and walked away from the table. Chosun reported, citing another unnamed diplomatic source. Kim Jong-un and Trump left the Vietnamese capital without a deal after they failed to reach agreement on rolling back Pyongyang's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. In other news, Saudi Arabia's King Salman on Friday ratcheted up the rhetoric against arch-nemesis Iran. The Saudi king calling on Arab states to confront its criminal actions after attacks on oil installations sparked fears of a regional conflagration. The king's remarks came at the start of two back-to-back emergency summits in the city of Mecca.
نطالب المجتمع الدولي بتحمل مسؤولياته ازاء ما تشكل الممارسات الإيرانية من تهديد الأمن والسلم للدوليين واستخدام كافة الوسائل لوقف النظام الإيراني من التدخل في الشؤون الداخلية للدول الأخرى.
Saudi Arabia hosted the summits, which will be followed by a third meeting on Saturday of heads of state from Islamic nations, apparently to mobilize efforts to isolate Iran's regime amid fears of a military confrontation. But Iraq, caught in the middle of its two allies, the U.S. and Iran, opposed a final statement released by Arab countries which condemned Tehran's behavior in the region. Iraq, which has offered to mediate between Washington and Tehran, recently warned of a risk of war amid escalating tensions. The summits came a day after hawkish U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said Iran was almost certainly behind this month's sabotage of 4 ships, including 2 Saudi oil tankers off the UAE coast. But Tehran rejected that charge. Saudi Arabia, a staunch U.S. ally, also faces stepped-up drone attacks from Iran-allied Houthi rebels, one of which resulted in the temporary shutdown of a major oil pipeline. In other news, UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador Orlando Bloom visited Mozambique this week, where 1.1 million children remain in urgent need of humanitarian assistance in the aftermath of tropical cyclones Idai and Kenneth. Now, the actor traveled to Beira, one of the areas worst affected by Cyclone Idai, which killed over 600 people and destroyed nearly 240,000 homes when it made landfall in March. UNICEF is supporting families affected by the cyclones to either return home or relocate to safer places. UNICEF is also providing healthcare, nutrition, education, water and sanitation and protection services in the days following the storm. UNICEF and its partners restored water supplies to thousands of people in Beira and procured and administered 1 million doses of the cholera vaccine, thereby curbing a large cholera outbreak. Now, Bloom visited the Mutua resettlement area in Beira, currently home to around 1,500 people affected by the cyclones, nearly half of whom are children. Bloom danced and sang with young children and spoke to them about their hopes and dreams for the future.
How many families there are here?
Quantas famílias estão aqui?
Estou com 239 famílias.
239 families.
Wow. We just arrived in Mutua, which is a relocation area for families who basically lost everything in Cyclone Idai. It's our first morning. We've been driving for an hour and we're going to learn some more. We've just finished walking around the community. It's very difficult to articulate the sort of loss and devastation that these people have lived through. They're a very proud and sort of desperate at the same time. They have some very basic facilities in place.
Look at the moves! Legend!
UNICEF has launched an appeal for $122 million to support its humanitarian response for children and families devastated by the storm and its aftermath in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. Eagle News International will be right back.
Health is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort to seek ways to take care of it. That includes professional medical help from the best available. The Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated is known as one of the most specialized centers in medical services, backed by several experienced physicians in Chinese medicine. At an accuracy rate of 98%, countless
President Trump on Thursday kick-started the process of ratifying the new North American Trade Pact. But the U.S. President, put the accord at risk by announcing tariffs on Mexico over illegal immigration. Trump could put the text of the agreement before U.S. lawmakers in 30 days, but the timing of the vote is up to Congress. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador also submitted the trade pact to their legislatures this week. Earlier, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence was welcomed by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau ahead of discussions on the U.S.-MCA trade deal in Ottawa. Take a listen.
Primary points of conversation today will be on the ratification process for the United States, Mexico, Canada trade agreement. We're very much looking forward to working together to make sure that the benefits of this agreement, which we took a fair bit of time and energy to get right.
I want to assure the people of Canada that your Prime Minister drove a hard bargain, as did our President, but we believed it could be a win-win-win agreement, and we think the USMCA, which will be the largest trade deal in the history of the United States, will create jobs and opportunities in our country. It'll support growth in Canada and Mexico and all.
The three countries signed the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement in November to update the 25-year-old North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. And Trump this month cleared a major stumbling block to approval by removing contentious U.S. tariffs on Canadian and Mexican steel and aluminum. But the U.S. president was quick to erect a new potential barrier to the accord on Thursday, announcing a 5% tariff on all goods coming into our country from Mexico until such time as illegal migrants coming through Mexico and into our country stop. The tariff will gradually increase until the illegal immigration problem is remedied, Trump wrote on Twitter. Acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney tried to separate the two issues, telling journalists that, quote, "These are not tariffs as part of a trade dispute. These are tariffs as part of an immigration problem." In other news, Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg personally apologized to the families of the 346 victims who died in two Boeing 737 MAX deadly crashes in last October and March. Take a look.
I do personally apologize to the families. We feel terrible about these accidents, and we apologize for what happened. We are sorry for the loss of lives in both accidents. And that will never change. That will always be with us. I can tell you it affects me directly as a leader of this company. It's very difficult.
Chief Executive Dennis Muilenburg was pressed by CBS about failing to notify the Federal Aviation Administration for more than a year that the company had deactivated a signal designed to advise the crew of a disagreement between the plane's angle of attack sensors, or AOA, which measures its angle vis-a-vis oncoming air to warn of impending stalls. The sensors provide data to the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, a flight handling system connected to the deadly crashes of Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines MAXes. The FAA did not learn of the issue until after the Lion Air crash, more than 13 months after Boeing first unearthed the problem. The design of the MCA system has been criticized by aviation experts because it's tied to just one sensor at a time, making it susceptible to malfunction. In both of the MAX crashes, the MCAs pointed the plane sharply downward based on a faulty sensor reading, hindering the pilot's effort to control the aircraft after takeoff, according to preliminary crash investigations.
There was inaccurate sensor data that came into the airplane, that there appears to have been a maintenance issue with that sensor. We know that the MCAS software was activated multiple times during that flight, and in the end that added to the pilot workload. The implementation of that software, we did not do it correctly. Our engineers discovered that.
So you're fixing that now?
We're fixing it now, and our communication on that was not what it should have been. Clearly fell short, and the implementation of this angle of attack disagree alert was a mistake, right? We did not implement it properly. We're confident in the fundamental safety of the airplane.
The head of the airline industry's trade body, IATA Director General Alexander Dejuniak, has said the 737 MAX is unlikely to re-enter service before August. Meanwhile, China on Friday accused the United States of repeatedly lying about the effects of the trade war on its economy as Beijing prepares to hike tariffs on American goods ranging from wine to pianos and others. Saturday's retaliatory tariff increase will cap a week that was marked by a heated war of words and Chinese threats to curb exports of rare earths, which are key to U.S. tech industries after President Trump blacklisted telecom giant Huawei. The latest target of Beijing's ire was comments by Trump stating that the U.S. tariffs have had a devastating effect on the Chinese economy.
美方说这种谎言已经不是一次两次了，每次中方都及时的予以揭穿，但美方似乎很执着，甚至于很执迷，依然在不断的重复这些谎言。他们似乎相信，说的越多，信的人就越多，说的越多，底气就越足。这里我要正告美方，还是那句话，不要高估自己的造谣能力，也不要低估别人的判断能力。真正的底气，都来自于反复重复的谎言和谬论，或者自我编织的某种幻觉。
Trump more than doubled punitive tariffs on $200 billion in Chinese goods to 25% and launched the process to hit nearly all remaining imports from the Asian country. China responded by announcing that it would increase tariffs on $60 billion in American products on June 1, giving some room for a potential resolution, which has not materialized. Tariffs are not the only weapons in the trade war. The Trump administration has issued orders to curtail Huawei's access to American components it needs for its equipment, though a 90-day reprieve was issued. Chinese state media suggested this week that Beijing could hit back by stopping exports of rare earths to the United States, cutting off key materials used to make everything from smartphones to televisions and military equipment. But analysts say China may be reluctant to target the materials because it could hasten a global search for alternative supplies of rare earth. Now, Huawei faces U.S. criminal lawsuits, a looming cutoff of critical American technology, and unprecedented threats to its globe-spanning business, a corporate crisis that should provoke fear and anger among employees. But you'd hardly know it in the southern city of Shenzhen, where Huawei's cutting-edge campuses mix kitsch and confidence. Employees clock in via a smartphone app that reminds them it's time to start their shift, dine in cafeterias featuring an array of cuisines, and travel between facilities aboard a free shuttle system, chugging between various zones. Huawei's main Shenzhen campus is a sprawling, lavishly landscaped mix of glass office, towers, labs, and training centers, including a white-columned neoclassical research site the size of a city block and cheekily dubbed the White House for its resemblance to U.S. President Donald Trump's current address. In postings on Huawei's internal forum, Xinjiang, some users openly fret about the potential impact on their jobs and pay. But on the surface, at least, there is confidence in company and country.
就是在工作上，我们其实没有感觉到太大的变化，因为我们其实是有，虽然说看到很多一些新闻，然后公司也有领导就是讲过这个事情，但是我们的主要的任务还是一个，就是把我们自己的工作要做好，就是要去向我们的客户保证，我们要怎样才能，就是让他们给我们更多的信心，就是我们还能继续为他们做服务。
Zhang also disputed U.S. suspicions that Huawei is a puppet of China's military and thus a global security threat, charges that the company and China's government strongly deny.
作为我们来讲的话，我们觉得不是一个真事，因为，我觉得在华为工作的人来讲，基本上都是一些很朴实的人，所以我们不会去做一些，就是美国讲的那些事情，就是说我们跟政府有一些合作，其实我们没有接触过。
Staff members insist that unlisted Huawei is correct in saying it is owned by employees. Staff said they were awarded shares in the company based on years of service that they could sell when they leave for a price tied to company performance. Huawei declined to provide details of the program. The U.S. accusations remain a highly sensitive subject on campus, and several staff members declined to comment. And the news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Health is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort to seek ways to take care of it. That includes professional medical help from the best available. The Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated is known as one of the most specialized centers in medical services, backed by several experienced physicians in Chinese medicine. At an accuracy rate of 98%, countless patients who visited Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated have already been treated and cured.
Marami po ospital na napuntahan, pero wala.
Alas 4 hanggang alas 5 ng hapon.
Welcome back. A volcano on the Indonesian island of Bali erupted on Friday, spewing a plume of ash and smoke more than 2,000 meters into the sky. Mount Agung has been erupting periodically since it rumbled back to life in 2017, sometimes grounding flights and forcing residents to flee their homes. Take a look. To Italy now, another volcano, Mount Etna, is erupting again. It spewed ash and lava to the southeast. Take a look. Geologists said that there are two areas of the mountain which have opened up, one in the southeast and the other in the south-southeast. Overnight, cameras were able to capture a number of eruptions and red lava flow after a small fissure opened on one side of the crater. Such bursts of action can occur several times a year on Europe's most active volcano. Now, have airports in Italy have been closed? Catania Airport, which closed in February following a significant eruption, remains open. UK companies, including budget airlines Ryanair and EasyJet, frequently fly to the terminal in the south of the country. The airport's website states all routes for this morning, Italy time, have departed, albeit some with delays. In other news, climate change and urbanization are combining to create an urgent global need for sustainable cities. In response, the United Nations is exploring how the creation of floating cities can help solve the urban crisis. Take a look.
Basically represents 10,000 people. It's organized into a series of 6 villages, and each of those is broken down to neighborhoods. So each neighborhood here is about 2 hectares. It has everything you need for 300 people to live, work, and gather. There are also provisions for energy generation, water collection, food production that are integrated with each of the neighborhoods. So basically those scale up. So you have 6 sort of neighborhoods make a connected village.
This is really new ideas, new creativity to solve the urban crisis and looking at an urban solution. That's what Floating City is all about.
That very soon, as fast as we possibly can, try to have a prototype floating somewhere in coastal waters within the jurisdiction of a host city, but something that we can actually study, so hopefully fast.
Not a small island cities, but a big ocean cities, meaning that there are a lot of opportunity on the ocean, but not on the small island, for new, innovative and new ways of living in the future.
To Japan now. Generally, the wisteria flowers are said to be at its best at the beginning of May. At Kawachi Fujien in Kita, Kyushu City, you can enjoy the grand sight of these beautiful wisteria flowers. Christine Mendoza is at the scene. Take a look.
Hello everyone, my name is Christine and today I am here at Ashikaga Flower Park to see the beautiful wisteria flowers. I'm excited! Come, join me! Every year, thousands of people are visiting the park to see the famous wisteria.
If you are a wanderlust, try to embark on a wisteria adventure for a tranquil experience. Ashikaga Flower Park in Tochigi showcases the beauty of mainly wisteria, as well as many other flowers like azalea.
Here at Ashikaga Flower Park, you can not only see the breathtaking wisterias, but also the pretty azaleas.
I'm Shirley. I have been in Japan for about 6 months now. This is my first time visiting the Hysteria. It took me around 3 hours to reach here, but I think it was totally worth it. And it's really beautiful for a very minimal fees. It's like 1,600 for a very beautiful setting with the white wisterias, the yellow ones and the pink ones. I had a really good time and I want to come back again.
The Great Miracle Wisteria is the park's pride and joy, located right in the middle of Ashikaga Flower Park. The stress-relieving ambience brought by the purple scenery will definitely make your stay in Tochigi worthwhile.
Hello Philippines, mabuhay, konnichiwa.
welcome to Ashikaga Flower Park. Today is Akanuhiay. If you want to visit this place, you should visit Tuchigi area. I recommend it to come around this time. The wisteria will be in full bloom around mid-April to early May.
That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. See you again next time. Sayonara. Once again, this is Christine Mendoza together with Laura Mora for Eagle International 125.
Thanks, guys. Meanwhile, developers convened at PAX East 2019 at the Boston Convention Center, showcasing the newest indie games and mobile platform. Let's meet Thea Morrison and Barry Silvestre, Filipino game developers and co-founders of the Kibo Games. As Joanne Blanca reports, these developers will explain how they put Pinoy culture in the games. Joanne?
Gaming conventions are a way for both well-known and indie developers to showcase their up-and-coming games. I'm here in PAX East in Boston with Thea and Barry to tell us more. Okay, so can you tell us about what game you have here today?
Today we have Jackaxe. It's inspired by a Filipino and Nordic mix. That's the culture that we have in the game. Why Filipino? Because we're Filipino, and Nordic because we don't have the poster, but she maneuvers with an axe. So it's kind of like Thor, and we thought that it would be a good mix of cultures, and also because, like, I'm Swedish.
Tell us about some hidden things you put in the games.
One of the example is we put in Tagalog words, like in this line of dialogue, we mentioned, let's play Taguan again, and we try to explain what's Taguan. So it's I hide and you will never find me, or it's I hide and seek game. And we also have inspirations for the levels based on Philippine provinces. So we have Cordillera regions, Borac, Pampanga, and Siquijor. So those are the influence of the Philippines in the game.
And you said you have another game that you're showcasing here today.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So in addition, we're also granted by Nintendo to become a publisher for Nintendo Switch. So now we are showcasing, we are about to release 4 games this year, and one of those games is a game made by Filipino developers from Naga. So they are Drick Studios, headed by Justin Villegas, and it's a tactical RPG mixed with card game. Very story-driven, lots of characters, and it's also in 3D, so it's very impressive for Filipinos to be able to deliver such a game and in a device by Nintendo. So besides those 2 games, we also have 2 other games set for release this year. It's Hainan Revolver with co-op gameplay. It's an action roguelike platformer. Nintendo Switch comes with 2 Joy-Cons, so it's ready for 2-player gaming. This is another game which I made. It's Tower Fortress. The port on Switch is different because it has 2-player mode now, and it also has 8 modes, so you can play the game vertically. So we mostly make games based on the games we played as a kid.
Nostalgic games.
Yeah.
So we're trying to target the nostalgic feel in games because, I don't know, it's really close to people's hearts. It's close to mine. I was a Nintendo kid.
We do games that we love to play, and we're gamers since kids.
It's just very cool that as a Filipino, we're now also going to make games for Nintendo. It's just really cool.
So when will the games be coming out?
Jackaxe and Grand Guilds will be out by the 3rd quarter of 2019 on Switch and Steam.
As we can see, Filipino gaming developers are starting to make their mark on a broader audience. Reporting from PAX East in Boston, this is Joanne Soriano, 1/25.
Thank you, Joanne. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay tuned.
Health is our most important.
alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Talented Filipino rapper Rapido has released Bacante, or Vacant in English, the new single released by E25 Records. Take a look. Now, the single was produced by E25 Records, the newest record label in the Philippines, owned and operated by Eagle Broadcasting Corporation.
Umalis, mabilis na pagkatapos lalakarin ko na lang para di na ako gumastos mabigat ang pasa nagiging sa daan. Sa labi na walang masakit katawan, maraming paraan umimigay na dyan. Kahit nasugatan, narating di naman pakinggan ang mga paliwanag. Magkakatuluyan sa akin lumayo dahil hinahanda ko ang sarili ko para maging karapat dapat para sa'yo, di ba? Di mo tatagal tayo kahit tumapagal, magpapagal ko sigurado. Kaya huwag ka muna mainibigatan na bakante.
All right, finally in our news, here's Ben Bernaldez for sports.
In NBA, Toronto forward Pascal Siakam scored 32 points and the upstart Raptors defeated the defending champion Golden State Warriors 118-109 in Thursday's opening game of the NBA Finals. The 25-year-old Cameroonian forward made 14 of 17 shots from the floor, while Kawhi Leonard added 23 points and both players pulled down 8 rebounds and passed out 5 assists. Spanish center Marc Gasol added 20 points and Kyle Lowry had 9 assists for the Raptors, who seized the lead in the best-of-7 championship series that resumes Sunday in Toronto. Stephen Curry scored a game-high 34 points for Golden State, but the Warriors could not solve Toronto's swarming and aggressive defensive work. The Warriors seek their third title in a row and fourth in 5 seasons, while the Raptors are in first NBA Finals in their 24-season history. In tennis, Naomi Osaka staged a second successive Roland Garros Great Escape on Thursday as fellow top seed Novak Djokovic played in front of his 4-year-old son for the first time, and Serena Williams strolled into the last 32. World number 1 Osaka, beating to add the French Open to her US and Australian Open titles, came back from a set and 2-4 down to defeat former world number 1 Victoria Azarenka 4-6, 7-5, 6-3. Her win came on the back of being just 2 points from defeat in her tournament opener against Anna Karolina Shemendlova. The 21-year-old held her nerve despite squandering 2 match points late in the deciding set to secure a clash against Katarina Siniakova of Czech Republic. Osaka finished the 2-hour 50-minute encounter on court Suzanne Lenglen with 52 winners and 42 unforced errors. She became the first top seed to win her 2 opening matches at Roland Garros after losing the first set since Lindsay Davenport in 2005. Meanwhile, Djokovic cruised into the last 32 for its 14th successive year, admitting it had been an emotional day playing for the first time in front of his 4-year-old son. Djokovic, bidding to become just the second man to hold all 4 slams at the same time twice, cruised to a 6-1, 6-4, 6-3 win over Swiss lucky loser Henry Lakonen. Djokovic goes on to face Italian qualifier Salvatore Caruso, ranked 147 for a place in the last 16 in Paris. And in golf, Tiger Woods launched his latest tilt at Sam Snead's record for a USPGA Tour victories with a 2-under par 70 Thursday that left him 5 off the pace set by Brian Moore at the Memorial Tournament. Former world number 1 Woods, playing for the first time since missing the cut at the PGA Championship, made birdies at 2 of his 3 closing holes to stay within shouting distance of Moore, who carded a 7-under 65. The 43-year-old Woods, a 5-time winner at Memorial, could equal Snead's record of 82 PGA Tour wins with a victory this week at Murfield Village in Dublin, Ohio. The 15-time major winner, who crowned his comeback from a nearly 2-year injury layoff by winning the Masters in April, looked comfortable throughout Thursday's first round. A smiling Woods was satisfied with his round, although he said he could have made better use of the soft conditions. And these are the stories for EN Sports. I'm Ben Bernaldez, and I'm 125.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Eagle News International, I'm Alma Angeles, always one with 25. Good night.